From FingerLakes1.com, this is Inside the FLX. I'm Josh Durso, and today we're talking about the future of Cayuga County with the man who leads the county's largest governing body. Cayuga County Legislature Chairman Keith Batman, who recently won re-election for his District 7 seat, joins us in studio to talk about the 2018 budget, some long-term goals, and a bunch of other items and newsworthy discussions. Keith, thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So for those of us who may not be quite as exposed to Cayuga County, a lot of our listeners are from the Cayuga County area, but you are the first person involved with the legislature to be here in studio. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with politics.
Well, I was born many years ago. No, let me not go back that far. I get involved in politics as a natural evolution from being involved in the community. I've been involved in community groups my entire adult life, so for more than 45 years in Cayuga County. I've been on dozens of boards. I've served on a school board. I was supervisor in the town of Scipio, and now I was elected chair or representative of District 7 and then chair of the legislature. All of these things, for me, as I say, are natural evolutions. It has to do with wanting to serve the community, do things for the community, be involved, engaged, and so that's my personal history, and that's why I'm here today.
So obviously you were challenged through a write-in campaign, this most recent election cycle. Talk a little bit about the race, the new makeup of the legislature, if any changes have taken place, and how you think the makeup now moving forward of the largest governing body in Cayuga County will impact policy in 2018.
Yeah, well, as you say, my election this year was challenged by a write-in candidate, mounted a very aggressive campaign. I'm just very pleased that the voters in District 7 re-elected me and showed confidence in me. The legislature is changing in composition in 2018. The 2016 was 2 years ago, was the first time the Democrats had a majority in the county in the history of the legislature. So that majority is what allowed me to be chair. Prior to that, of course, we were a minority party. We still maintain our majority in 2018, although we did lose one seat. That was an independent in Weedsport, Grant Kyle, but who caucused with the Democrats. So at this point, we'll have an 8-7 majority going into 2018. I do not think that there will be huge changes in terms of direction or perspective. We will have some changes in leadership, I'm sure. We haven't caucused yet, nor I think have the Republicans, and so exactly how things come out in terms of even who's chair, quite frankly, will be determined in early January. But in terms of directions, I think there's been an attempt in the last couple of years to include people. So the directions the county are going in, I'm confident will continue, at least in terms of the overall program and impact.
So just kind of giving a glance through the highlights of your guys' upcoming budget or what you guys are working on. I believe you have a meeting tonight.
We do.
To address this. So looking at some of the top level stuff, you're staying under the tax cap or will be staying under the tax cap. 2% increase to the levy roughly. So from the taxpayer's perspective, what will residents be getting for this 2018 budget if passed as is today?
Yeah, well, I think we'll be getting a lot. I'm pleased with this budget. I was very pleased with the process, which was the most inclusive process that we've ever had in terms of involving department heads. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth. What people will get is no reduction in services, which is critically important. The 2% tax increase, which is well under the tax cap, which is obviously important to people. In addition to that, we'll continue the initiatives we began in 2017. There are a number of these, including, importantly, a look at the organizational structure of the county. One of the things we did in 17 was begin to look at how we organize ourselves. And the reason it's so important is to make certain that we're operating efficiently, effectively, and that how we report and how we relate to one another within the county is the best way to do it in order to provide services at the least cost and maintain quality. So that initiative will continue. We have several new initiatives. We are beginning a testing program in conjunction with the Finger Lakes, the lab in Lansing, and some community volunteer groups. We're going to begin testing in Cayuga Lake, similar to the program we have in Owasco Lake. Not quite that big, but it's a first step to test the waters in Cayuga Lake to begin to have yet more impact on the problems of water quality, which every Finger Lakes is facing. So that's an important new initiative. We're having a small pilot program, and it's small. It's only going to be funded about $5,000, but we're putting some money into a small program to allow the groups in the community that have ideas for art and cultural activities where they can come and get some seed pilot money to really begin to do some programs in the arts and in cultural programs of cultural nature. And the reason that's so important is its recognition that government does have a role in the quality of life, and the quality of life means more than good roads. It needs more than the making certain that the things are plowed and open. It means more than making certain that it's safe. Those things are all important, but it's also there's more to a quality of life, and for the county to participate in that sends a very positive message, I think, in terms of what the community values. Some other initiatives that will continue that are very important are initiatives related to green energy savings. We completed a program this year where we looked at all of our buildings and the energy consumption to see where we might save money, be more green, reduce our carbon footprint. We'll continue with that program. We were named a greener community this year, and part of that was we received a $250,000 NYSERDA grant. We haven't received that yet. We've applied, and that money will be coming next year. That will allow us to do a number of kind of green programs. We will switch over some of our electricity usage at the jail. We're putting a heat exchanger. We're going to be buying some hybrid vehicles for our county fleet. That will continue, and there are other things as well. Those are just some of the high points, but this is all possible within a balanced budget and with 2%, and I think the balanced budget is really important. The county has a history of kind of good times and bad. What we've done over the years is we've had events that occurred. We sold our nursing home. We had a good year with sales tax, and what we tended to do is put that money into our fund balance and then spend it down. So what would end up happening is we never had funds to use for the things we need, and as a result we have at this point substantial capital needs in terms of buildings and roads and so on. This budget also plans for some of that to begin to put us in a position where we can repair our roads, repair our buildings, and move forward. And again, with a balanced budget, because if we don't balance our budget now, we will never be able to. These are pretty good economic times for upstate, which means that we're not doing as well as cities, but we're not doing nearly as poorly as we could. So these are the times we need to balance the budget. We need to plan for our future. This budget does all of that.
Now, you were quoted by the Auburn Citizen, Gwendolyn Craig of the Auburn Citizen, as saying, roads need our attention and we need to focus there at one point during this whole debate around what the budget was going to look like. How tough is it to balance the need of, better roads and having to perform this maintenance, but then have on top of that, so like the state comptroller releases a report and says, hey, Cayuga County, your bridges aren't too good. How difficult is it to sort of handle these, kind of like one thing after another when there's only so much money to go around?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a challenge. It's difficult, but this is what planning's about, and it's why strategic planning is important. You take one problem at a time. You understand it, and then you take another problem. And what you do as you attempt to apply all of the knowledge that you gain is to take all this information, take all these problems and look at them in total so that you're able to establish some priorities. What's the most important thing to do? How do we attack that? Then what do we attack next? And you look at it not in a period of 6 months or 12 months, but over time. And over time, I think you can have an impact. It is a challenge to balance a budget when you have all of these needs. But it's also important to do so because, as I said before, right now we are in fairly good economic times, and this is a time where it's important to keep that budget balanced, put a little aside so that when we do need it later, we have it. And if you look at our fund balance, which is reasonably healthy, Cayuga County has which is both good and bad, maybe. But Cayuga County, when the comptroller came out with his financial stress indicators, we have a 0 financial stress indicator at this point. I'm hoping that doesn't mean we're not going to be eligible for some state funds, but that may be the bad part. But the good part of that is that our fund balance, our fundamental operating structure, the way we're planning for the future, our debt position, and so on is in very good condition. Again, in terms of the overall planning, the other thing we have to plan for in the back of our minds is when things do turn. If the economy takes a turn, and it will sooner or later, the market will correct, and sooner or later that will have an effect on localities. We have to have some money set aside so that doesn't become a crisis. That doesn't mean that we have to raise taxes 5-6%, which has happened in the past in Cayuga County. So we're planning for that as well. So all of these things have to be taken in total, and you're absolutely right. It's a real challenge, but I think it's a challenge we're up to, frankly.
Now, you mentioned some of the environmental issues. How, or I should ask, what role do you see the county playing in sort of working on whether it's harmful algae or whether it's just salinity in lakes or whatever the issue may be that pops up? It seems like every year there is a new issue popping up as it pertains to the health of the Finger Lakes as a whole. What do you sort of see as the role of the county in facilitating change, whether it be between the state and local level or there in between?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of things we can do. And we're doing a lot of them. We're very active in programs in Wasco Lake, and we're going to become more active in Cayuga Lake. Those are the two Finger Lakes, the primary Finger Lakes that border us. We also have a small border with Skinny Atlas, but quite frankly, the Syracuse and Onondaga County take care of Skinny Atlas, and so we don't need to put so much attention there. So we're very active in looking at those. We have probably the most active lake association in the Finger Lakes, in the Wasco Watershed Lake Association. We have a very active water quality management agency that has done a number of things in looking at issues of water quality, and so we're engaged in that. We're involved in that. What local government can do in general. Well, let me start with what local government can't do. We cannot fix the problem. We don't have the resources. The cost of combating the harmful algae blooms, both in terms of initial kind of immediate treatment and long-term fixes, is huge, and it's more than Cayuga County, Onondaga County, Seneca County, or Nama County has. Yeah. And so we can't do that. What we can do in that context is continue to advocate for a fix, continue to advocate with the state government, with the federal government, keep the problems very much in the forefront of their minds. We can liaison with them, attempt to communicate and push for solutions. And we've been pretty successful with that. This year in Wasco Lake, we had for the first time in any of the Finger Lakes, there were the toxins in the water coming into the plant in Auburn, in Owasco. We were very successful in getting money to do a research study to see what the solution might be to remove those toxins, and then to get some funds to help us put in place a treatment system, both in the town of Owasco and the city of Auburn, that will remove any toxins, and that's been working very well. That is not something the county did, but it's something that we did. The county, the city, the village, the city of Auburn, the town of Owasco, along with Department of Health, Department of Environmental Conservation, many other people working together, we actually are looking at a solution for this problem. That's immediate. The long-term solution is much more complicated, and in that, we just simply need to play the role of keeping it in the forefront, keeping it in everyone's minds, and trying to find a way to bring parties together who have fundamental disagreements on how to approach this stuff, bring them together, try to get them talking so that we can have a long-term solution. So that's kind of, as I see it, the role of county government.
Right. Now, one of the more interesting discussions that I've seen sort of start, or debates, I should say, start in Cayuga County is this talk around the county building. What should be done with the county building? Should it be renovated? Should it be, I guess, sold off and you guys move to a new location? Or I just kind of am curious what your take is on that entire discussion, because it seems as though even just from the downtown status of Auburn, it's a very, very large building to have to just up and replace if one day it's suddenly empty.
Yeah, and this whole issue is an issue that's fueled by the partisan politics. This was not the political issue that it is now, until the election came up, and it's one of the examples is that I was accused in this election of wanting to build a new $30 million county office building, and I had no idea where that came from, but it's just an example. And that got a lot of headlines and it got a lot of attention because it's shocking. It's like, oh, but the larger issue is this and it's really pretty simple. We have a building, and we have several buildings, by the way, but our main building in Auburn, at Genesee Street, is a 6-story building that houses the majority of county government. Not all. We have, as I say, we have other buildings, but the majority of county government. That building was built during the days when asbestos was used as an important fire retardant and insulating the material. As a result of that, there's asbestos in the ceilings and the floors, not in the walls, but in the ceilings and the floors. Now, it does not pose any kind of danger. It is encapsulated. And so the building is just fine. The problem is that if we want to do anything, if we want to do any renovations in that building, we first have to abate the asbestos, because once you disturb it, then it's dangerous.
Right.
So the cost of abatement has to be considered in any renovation we do. The question, of course, the obvious question is, well, why renovate? And the answer is that the Cayuga County government, like most governments, like many businesses, kind of evolved a little bit by little bit by little bit. So what made sense in terms of that basic structure and the flow of people and who's located where and so on 30 years ago may not be the best way to do it now. But we're not in a position to really do any of the renovations that we may want to do based upon that asbestos. Something as simple as the fact that building needs new windows. Some of the offices actually in the winter have to have curtains to keep the snow from blowing in, and that's not energy efficient. It's not a good place to work, and so on. So these things have to be done. So the fundamental question we have to look at then is, okay, do we renovate or do we build? And if we renovate, what do we do with or if we build rather, what do we do with that building? Those are just the fundamental questions we have to answer. And it's in some respects, it's not the process may be complicated because there are a lot of factors, but the question is simple. We have a building that needs work. What do we do? You can put that in personal terms. Mm-hmm. You have in your house, you have a bathroom that needs work. What do? You're going to put in a new one. You're going to jerry-rig what you have. I mean, those are the fundamental questions that right. we have to struggle with, and those are questions we simply have to answer. And hopefully, we're going to begin serious discussions about direction tonight. No solutions, no answers, but at least to really begin to understand the questions that we need to ask and get answered so we can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, new county administrator. How important is that for Cayuga County to have that out of the way, being able to start, in a lot of ways, start fresh in 2018? And also, from the inside, just curious what the process felt like, what it looked like, and what your thoughts are on it.
Well, it's absolutely critically important. The administrator is maybe the most important position in the county. It's certainly more important than the chair of the legislature. for sure. It's the focal point for everything we can do. It's the focal point for planning. It's the focal point for the making certain that all of our departments are functioning smoothly and together. It's just the focal point for operations and for leading us in strategic questions. So critically important. And we've got a great guy, a man we've hired a man named Justin Woods.
Yep.
We look forward to working with. He's going to bring a strategic focus to the position, and it's going to benefit us all greatly. The process was a government process, and it's always interesting to do anything in government, and so that's all I'll say about that.
Right.
But
so
we're at the end of the process.
Right.
We have a great conclusion, and I'm pleased about that.
So switching gears a little bit, you guys had a couple. I don't want to call them disasters, but environmental sort of circumstances that put you guys in a tough spot. Obviously, the storms over the summer, and then also the flooding along Lake Ontario. Just sort of curious on how you feel the county has sort of come together and handled those issues and without any complaints, despite the fact that it looks like you guys were snubbed from the White House's disaster declaration. Cayuga County and Monroe County were the two counties that were excluded. Sort of your take on where things stand right now and how you feel the county really prevailed through those challenging circumstances.
Okay. Well, to deal with the snubbing first, I've been assured by many offices in the state and in the federal government that was really an administrative oversight. It was these things, I suppose, happen, and that's being corrected and will be corrected soon, so that we will be on that list.
Excellent.
So that, from my perspective, is taken care of. I've been assured that I need not worry about it, and so I'm not. In terms of what the disasters really told us, and this is more confirmed, particularly the disaster in the southern part of the county, which was much more widespread for us because we have a larger area. We're a long, narrow county, so the area we have on Lake Ontario is fairly small in terms of it's a single town. It was an important event, of course, but in terms of the response, the response was narrowly defined because the area is narrowly defined. If you look at the southern part of the county, there were 4 or 5 towns involved in serious flooding damage, and another 2 or 3 in damage, not quite as serious, but nonetheless damage. The state was involved in that, obviously, with their roads, the county with their roads, and various, as I say, towns and village roads. One of the things that illustrated was the extent to which people in Cayuga County do work together. The highway departments came together, worked as a team to do 2 things. One is the immediate need, which was to get roads back open for emergency vehicles. The damage in the southern part of the county was extensive and was surprising. When I toured the area, I just could not believe the number of roads that were totally washed away. Mm-hmm. Several of those roads were important to connect emergency services. So you had to, if that road's not there, then you have to go around, and in some cases a 20 or 30 minute detour, which is critically important if you're talking about an emergency. So the extent to which people came together quickly to fix those immediate problems was very impressive. The other thing it illustrates is that this idea of looking long-term and planning. The people are working together to find solutions to the extent we can, so that when we repair the roads, we don't simply put them back the way they were, but we look and say, okay, this washed out because let's not put it back the same way, so that next time it washes out, we don't go, who would have thought? Because the idea is we would have thought, and we're attempting to correct some of those problems. And I use the wrong word there. I don't want to say correct, because the roads were built for the old normal. We haven't had a storm like this maybe ever, but it certainly has been longer than anyone remembers. I mean, we had rains. It was raining 4 or 5 inches an hour in some areas. They got as much as in a period of just a few hours as much as 12, 14 inches of rain. Right. That water moved incredibly rapidly. Mm-hmm. It washed roads away. washed dishes away. It moved culverts, these huge multi-ton pieces of metal.
Yeah.
Just picked them up and moved them along. That's a function of the changing weather patterns. I mean, we haven't had storms like that before. Now, we can say, well, we probably won't again, but what we're trying to do is say, well, maybe we will, and we want to rebuild this in a way so that we can anticipate what might occur and that we won't have the same problem next time. So, and the way people came together was great. That FEMA declaration, I understand, is probably going to occur in the next week or 2 or 3, but very, very soon. Because that also was widespread. It wasn't just Cayuga County, but throughout central New York and into western New York and into Madison, Cayuga County. So huge storm events.
Now, last question before we get you out of here. Whenever I have a chairman of a legislative body on, I've had from Ontario County, Wayne County, Seneca County, Yates County last week, now Cayuga County, and I want to ask, if you could have one thing or have the state change one thing to make the job of a county legislator easier, to ease the burden, to make what you guys do for residents more, or just sort of eliminate some of the red tape, what do you think that one item would be, or a couple items?
Well, I'm impressed. Did someone have one item? Where people
it's usually a list. Yeah, it's usually a list.
I don't know
In the interest of time, though, I usually have to cut people off.
I don't know what the one thing would be. I mean, we face, everyone talks about mandates, and those are a significant problem. And so, if you have a general category, I guess the one thing that I would say is that if the state is going to require something be done, the state pays for it to be done. That would be if I had one thing to say, that would be immense help. If I had two things to say, the thing I would add to that is that because New York is so big and we're so diverse and we've been around so long, that what tends to happen is that on the state level, I think there's the departments, the structure, it tends to lose sight of the larger issues in the state. And there tends to be really a focus, an Albany-based focus, too much, I think, sometimes. And the idea of finding ways to really involve people so there's a collaborative sense of not just finding solutions, but quite frankly of defining problems. Because oftentimes in New York State, I think the state finds goes in search of a problem, to which they already have a solution, and so it's the other way around. So things are often kind of forced in a way, and I think better communication, better discussion would help with that.
Well, we really appreciate you coming in today, obviously, to make the time, squeeze in those 30 minutes to talk to us. We'll be having you back in 2018, I'm sure, to talk more about the specifics of the things happening in Cayuga County, but thank you again for coming in.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. I'd like to thank Keith, our listeners, and, of course, FingerLakes1.com for making this podcast possible. Inside the FLX airs Sundays at 7 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 12 and is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and the FingerLakes1.com app. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.